Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're diving into a practice you've almost certainly heard of, but maybe you don't really know the details about. Reiki. What is it exactly? How is it supposed to work? And where did it even come from? Well, let's get into it and see what the sources have to say.
All right, so let's start with the name itself, because that tells you a lot. Reiki is actually two Japanese words put together. Rei can be translated as a kind of higher intelligence or universal wisdom. And ki, well, that's the big one. That's the life force energy that's said to flow through every single living thing. So put them together, and you get spiritually guided life force energy. That's the absolute core of this whole practice.
So, okay, how is this energy supposed to work on a practical level, maybe even a physical one? Let's take a look at the energetic theories behind the whole practice. The whole foundation here is that everything about us is vibrational. The sources we're digging into describe the human body as this, well, an energetic system where different parts literally have their own unique frequencies. For instance, they suggest that something dense, like our bones, resonates really slowly at a low frequency, while our blood, and get this, even our thoughts vibrate at much, much higher rates. Now, this vibration is said to create something called a biomagnetic field. That's the ki or prana you hear about in Eastern traditions. And here's where it gets really interesting. The claim cited in our sources is that this field can actually be measured, and that a Reiki practitioner's hands can produce a significantly larger biomagnetic reading than an average person. We're talking in the 7 to 10 hertz range, which is a frequency band that some studies have linked with physical healing. So how is that energy thought to move around? Well, according to the theory, these aren't just random vibrations. They're believed to flow through very specific channels called meridians. You can picture them like a super intricate highway system that extends into every single organ and cell, connecting everything together. To try and ground this in a concept you might know from physics class, some sources compare it to something called the piezoelectric effect. It's a real principle where if you apply mechanical force, like pressure, to a crystal, it generates an electrical charge. So the theory here is that our bodies, which have crystalline-like structures, and our bones and tissues, might work in a similar way, turning physical and energetic inputs into electrical signals. Okay, so how does a practitioner's energy influence someone else's? The proposed mechanism is based on this really cool concept from physics called entrainment. The classic story comes from way back in 1665, when a scientist noticed that two pendulum clocks hanging on the same wall eventually synced up and started swinging in perfect harmony. It's this natural law where two vibrating things can just lock into phase with each other. And this is the absolute crucial point. During a session, the practitioner isn't using their own personal limited energy. They see themselves as a channel or a conduit for this universal life force energy. And through that principle of entrainment, the client's energy field, which might be a little chaotic or out of balance, naturally starts to harmonize with the stronger, more stable vibration being channeled by the practitioner. To really get Reiki, you gotta look at where it came from. So let's dive into the story of its founder, a man named Mikao Usui. Mikao Usui was born in Japan back in 1865. He had this really deep education in a Buddhist monastery, learning martial arts and a form of Qigong. But the sources say that a personal crisis, a big failure in his life, sent him on this intense spiritual quest. And this all culminated in 1922 with what he described as a huge moment of enlightenment, where he felt he gained these healing abilities and began to develop the system we now call Reiki. After that, he opened a clinic and started an organization to share what he'd found. And this quote is so key to his whole philosophy. His goal was never to be this one singular famous healer. As this shows, he wanted to create a system that could be taught, that could be transferred, and that could be used by anyone to help themselves and to help others. It was all about empowerment, not about exclusivity. So from that one starting point, Reiki has spread all over the globe and it's evolved. Let's take a look at how it's actually practiced today, starting with its different styles and the core pillars that hold it all up. Over time, a few main styles have popped up. You've got Jikiden Reiki, which is considered the most traditional. It tries to stick as close as possible to Usui's original methods. Then there's Usui or Western Reiki, which was adapted for a Western audience by a woman named Hawayo Takada, and it often has a big focus on stress reduction. And then there's Gendai Reiki-Ho, which is a modern blend that tries to combine that Western style with teachings that are claimed to be from Usui's original society. But really, no matter the style, the whole practice is built on these three basic pillars. First is Gasho. That's a meditation with your hands together, just to quiet the mind. Second is Riji Ho.
This is where you actively ask the Reiki power to guide your hands to wherever they're needed. And third is Chidio, which is the treatment itself. You just follow that gut feeling, that intuitive guidance you just asked for. So what does this look like in a practical self-treatment? Well, the sources describe a pretty simple process. You find a quiet spot, you center yourself, and then you just move through a series of hand positions, holding each one for about 3 to 5 minutes. A common sequence often starts right here, with your hands placed over your navel. This area is thought of as the body's energy center, covering the solar plexus and sacral chakras, which are key points for your vitality and creativity. And next, you'd move your hands down to your lower abdomen, right over the pubic bone. This position focuses on the root chakra, which is all about feeling grounded, stable, and secure. The treatment isn't just on the front of your body, though. From there, you might move your hands to your lower back, over the kidneys. In energy medicine, this area is often associated with fear, so it's seen as a really key spot for releasing deep-seated tension. And finally, for this basic sequence, the hands are held right at the very base of the spine, covering the sacrum. This position continues the work on that root chakra, kind of completing the circuit. These classic positions are presented as a great foundational framework for anyone wanting to do a self-treatment. Okay, so we've gone over the theory, the history, and the practice. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does it matter? Ultimately, it all points to this really profound connection between our inner world and our physical reality. The sources really hammer home this idea that where thought goes, energy flows. They even bring up research showing that the heart's electromagnetic field, which is so powerful it can be measured several feet away from the body, actually changes its pattern based on our emotions. So our thoughts and feelings aren't just these abstract things. They seem to have a real, tangible, energetic effect. And I think this quote from Dr. Chujiro Hayashi, who was one of Asui's students, just captures the essence of all of it perfectly. Reiki isn't presented as some small, contained technique, but as a way to connect with a fundamental, immeasurable energy that, well, underlies everything. Which leads us with a final, massive question. The sources are proposing a really fascinating model of reality. Are our bodies, our minds, and the universe itself all just different expressions of one single interconnected flow of energy? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.